Peace, family. It's good to be back. Let's get to work. Today, we want to talk about the legend of Joe Jackson. At the time of this recording, we heard recently of the transition of our brother Joe Jackson, the father of Michael, Janet, and the entire Jackson clan. I'm a firm believer that when a man dies and we begin to gather the bits and pieces of his life, a picture is painted for us on how a man should be judged on that day. Imagine a man standing before his creator with all of his bad deeds in his left hand and all of his good deeds in his right hand. On that day, the goal is for the right hand of good deeds to outweigh the left hand of not so good deeds. And at that point, that man is considered, I guess you would say, a good man. When you look at Joe Jackson's contribution to the world of culture and entertainment versus the way he has been drugged through the mud in mainstream media and other platforms, I don't know that we have been fair in our estimation of how we view Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson was a man who was brought up harshly in the state of Arkansas, which is a very racist state, one of the most terrible states for black people in the 20s and in the 30s. So when he was raising his family in Gary, Indiana, I think it was, because he had a harsh childhood, it was said that he was hard on his children. He even admitted this. And there have been some who claim that harshness crossed the line into abuse. I was not there, so I can't speak on how that man raised his children. The only thing we can do is judge the results. And when you look at the results, at some point, I feel as if though Joe Jackson has to be given some credit for how he raised his children and what it is that he built. Joe Jackson was a visionary, and he ultimately became the king, if you will, of an entertainment dynasty. If Michael Jackson could be termed the king of pop, then ask yourself the question, who is Joe Jackson? Joe Jackson was the king maker, because it was Joe Jackson who pushed Michael into not only the era or the area of genius, but he literally made Michael Jackson a god of entertainment. And so the discipline that this man forced on his children as children, some would look and say, it's Joe Jackson's fault that Michael did not have a childhood. He wouldn't even allow his own children to call him daddy. These are some of the things that we heard about him. And I can't say that I agree with all of his tactics. However, you cannot argue with the results. Michael Jackson went on to become the greatest entertainer that the world has ever seen. Yes, he died a tragic death, but when you look at what he was blessed to accomplish during his short 50-something years on this earth, it is phenomenal to be able to change the world through your gifts and your talents. But Michael did not become Michael on his own. They say Joe Jackson ran his household like a boot camp. They said that if you missed practice and you chose to do something other than what Joe Jackson told you to do as his child, you could be punished. All of this may very well be true. However, I still believe that we can learn something from what Joe Jackson did we can take bits and pieces from his life and use them to make our children more productive. Were it not for Joe Jackson, there would be no Michael. Were it not for Michael Jackson, there would be no Usher, no Chris Brown, no Bobby Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Were it not for Joe Jackson, there would have been no Janet Jackson. And then look at all of the female singers that Janet Jackson ended up influencing along the way. So you have to look at the good of a man's life before you make a final judgment on him. And if Joe Jackson did nothing else for his children and for his family, if he changed the world in no other way, Joe Jackson had a clear vision for where it is he wanted his children to go. He was firm in the course that he set them on, and he forced them to be disciplined in pursuing that course, so much so that you could have been the least talented of the Jackson clan and you could have gone platinum. So that being said, I think the thing that we can take from that is when you birth a child into this world, I don't suggest that you push them into entertainment or anything like that. If you choose to, fine. But whatever direction your child is going in, if we would impose the discipline on our children and the daily regimen of practice until practice is turned into perfection, then our children can become gods in their chosen field the way Michael became a god in his. And due to Michael's success, the entire Jackson family benefited, and to this day, you could be connected to the Jackson family, and there's power in that connection. None of this would have happened were it not for Joe Jackson Sr. So when you think about albums like Thriller, what would the world be like had there been no Thriller? Or the song We Are the World? What would your childhood have been like without a song like that? But were it not for Joe Jackson, none of these things would have been a reality. So when you look at Joe Jackson, I want you to picture a fruit tree. And here you are, the tree is all rough looking. You know, if you scrape your arm against it, it might bruise you and so on and so forth. But as the tree grows up, here you see the branches. Now, the branches are smaller than the tree, so they don't look as ugly as the tree, if you will. But coming from the branches, you see the beautiful leaves and you see the beautiful fruit. And we love to go and pick the fruit from the tree and enjoy the juices and the nutrients and everything that the fruit brings to our lives, but we hate acknowledging the tree that produced the fruit. So I just thought that it was fitting for us on the Black Channel to go on record stating that the legend of Joe Jackson must never be forgotten. It must never be ignored. And whatever of evil this man did to anybody, may God forgive him of it. But we want to celebrate the life of an icon, and we want to learn from his life. Again, he built an empire from nothing with sheer focus, sheer discipline, and sheer dogged desire to get his children from point A to point B, and point B meaning their ultimate success. So anyway, may Allah be pleased with our brother Joe Jackson, and he's a legend. Peace.